Why do the town guard have a white tree on their armor? You see, back in the first age of the world,
there was a great evil. It took hold in the hearts of those from one life themselves world. It is a symbol of
well, this town sounds boring, so we'll just head down the road. Okay, that's fine. And that's why you definitely shouldn't build your D&D world like Tolkien. But there are lots of things you can learn from his world building, including where to start. Welcome to the table. I'm Kelly, and we're talking about building better worlds for your D&D game. I just finished reading The Fall of Numenor, which was really great, and I definitely recommend if you enjoyed reading The Lord of the Rings, but it got me thinking about my own world building. And to be clear, I do not think you should build your D&D world like Tolkien. That is massively overkill, and it wouldn't leave any room for your players to add to the world. But Tolkien did so much world building that when he went to write The Lord of the Rings, he said it felt like he was discovering the story rather than writing it. He had such a strong foundation laid down that the story felt like it was already written. He just needed to find all the pieces. The concept of laying down a foundation in your world so that you can find the story with your players once you start playing is really powerful. And again, I don't think you should write the whole history of your world, but I do think that you should write the beginning. And by that, I mean the creation story or creation myth of your world. Tolkien wrote the creation story of his world pretty early on because it defined the power dynamic in the world. And then the cascading effects of that power dynamic shaped almost everything in the history and the story itself. So for that reason, I think you should start your world building with a creation story. And it's easy to phone it in and just say that each of the gods created part of the world and call it there, but the creation myth helps set the tone for your world, and it's a chance for you to be creative and set your world apart from other fantasy worlds. And there are lots of places to draw inspiration from, which I'll go over in a second. But you might think that you don't even need a creation myth. You might say, Kelly, I'm starting at level 1. The first arc is a small town that goblins attack. Why would I need to develop a creation story for the entire world? Well, if you're gonna play to 20th level or somewhere near that, chances are that the gods will need to be involved in the plot because of the scale that your players will be playing on. With the amount of power that players wield at 20th level, it's most likely that they'll be dealing with a potentially world-ending event. And if you know how the world began, then it can make it easier to figure out who the big players might be in the struggle for the domination of the world. So even if you're starting in a small village at level 1, if you know the creation story of your world, it can help you make logical story decisions along the way throughout your campaign so that the big battle at the end feels like it was brewing the whole time. There are a vast number and variety of creation stories, both in fiction and in religions and cultures around the world, that you can draw inspiration from. The creation story in Tolkien's world is that angelic beings performed a great symphony of creation under the direction of the creator. In Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels, the world exists on the back of 4 elephants which stand on the back of a giant sea turtle. These beings just came into existence, or always existed, in the vastness of space. From A Song of Ice and Fire, the Dothraki believed that the first people emerged from the lake in the womb of the world riding horses. The creation myth from the Dark Souls games are that the world always existed, but fire brought about the emergence of a new age and a new power dynamic in the world. All of these fictional creation myths were undoubtedly based on creation myths from religions and cultures around the world and throughout history. There are many to take inspiration from, and they vary quite widely. In Norse mythology, they believe that Odin and his brother killed a giant and then used different parts of the body to make the world. The Maori people of New Zealand believe that the sky and the earth were joined together and their children were born in darkness. The children decided to separate them and let light into the world, and then they became the gods that created different parts of the natural world. Greek mythology is wild, but in the very beginning they believed there was nothing, and then out of the void came the earth, the underworld, and love. From there, they created other divine beings who had domain over different aspects of the world. This is obviously just barely scratching the surface, but you can read many creation myths online and use that to inspire your own. Just a quick note here, don't just take anything directly from another culture or religion, but instead use it as inspiration to create your own unique myth. There is so much freedom to make a creation myth as wild or as tame as you want. It's a fun exercise to think of the most out there and wild story that you can, and then you can always rein that back in. Once you've built your campaign world and you're ready to start running your game, you might wonder how quickly to move through the plot. You can check out this video here for some tips on campaign and story pacing. I appreciate you.